The Indianapolis Colts entered 2025 with one of the more fascinating quarterback battles. Obviously, the Browns and the Saints are in their own quarterback battles themselves, but the Colts are the one that everybody is looking at to see who will be the starting quarterback in Indianapolis in 2025. They have Anthony Richardson, who we know they invested a significant amount of draft capital in and hasn't necessarily lived up to expectations so far in this career. They added Daniel Jones this offseason from the New York Giants, who similarly did not live up to expectations of his draft pick in his time in New York, but finds himself in Indianapolis after a small stint last year. You could call it in Minnesota. They also have Riley Leonard, who they drafted in the sixth round, who lost in the national championship game. Obviously, they're going to focus on the battle between AR and Daniel Jones, and we are here today to break down which quarterback gives the Colts the best chance this season and long term for this team to be successful and compete with some of the best teams in the AFC. So let's hop right into this video. What's up, everybody? I am Ryan Linklater. I'm here with Dan Loya here. We are talking the Indianapolis Colts quarterback situation today. As I've mentioned in the intro to this video, it is one of the more fascinating training camp battles. And as expected, Anthony Richardson has stacked really good days and also had some bad reports the prior week. And everybody's, saying, oh, Anthony Richardson's back. The footwork's improved. Everything's good. But last week, we all had reports that he was struggling. So, heading into this, Dan, what are you expecting? Is it going to be a ton of inconsistency? And what are you looking to see in this quarterback battle in training camp and heading into the preseason?
Yeah, Shane Steichen spoke to the media recently, and he said the competition is neck and neck. I really believe it's going to come down to the wire here. So they're both going to compete. It's going to be important to watch throughout the preseason and sticking up, continuing to watch preseason and keeping up with the articles. It could change day by day, so we just got to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and the interesting part about it, the Colts now since 2017 have had a different leading passer for their team since that Andrew Luck crazy retirement situation. And even that, Luck missed some time split in between those two seasons. And the Colts are trying to find a little bit of stability at the position. Now, Anthony Richardson was supposed to be that guy when they drafted him, heading in as a top pick in the draft. Hasn't really panned out. He was coming out of college. He was a raw prospect with incredible arm strength, had the legs of Josh Allen and the stature of Superman, basically, and hasn't necessarily found it within himself to work within an NFL system and has struggled to complete passes. That's the biggest knock on AR is he can't function in an NFL offense with the amount of overthrows that he has as a quarterback, and it throws the timing off of an offense. And this Indianapolis Colts team is in a win now mode. They have a top 5 running back potentially in the NFL in Jonathan Taylor. They have a receiver room with Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. That is no joke. They just drafted Tyler Warren, who is one of the better tight end prospects in the draft. Their defense, they have some solid players on that, like DeForest Buckner. They just signed Charvarius Ward as well. You have, I wouldn't say like the most well-known names on that defense, but they can compete. And in the AFC South, we know that you don't necessarily need to have a roster of the Eagles or the Chiefs or the 49ers to go potentially win this division. And then you enter Daniel Jones into that conversation. Dan, what is it about Daniel Jones that makes this quarterback battle very intriguing, potentially changing things up here in Indy?
Well, the thing is, he can complete more than 47% of his passes. So,
That's a
with
big
Shane
step
Steichen,
forward.
absolutely. So with Shane Steichen, he's a great play caller, and he's a real believer. Is I'm gonna get a guy open. You just gotta hit him. You gotta hit the layups. And obviously, through 2 seasons with Anthony Richardson, he can't do that. So that's why they brought in Daniel Jones on a 1-year, $14 million contract. So he's got a career, I believe, 70% completion percentage, somewhere around that range. So yeah, and he's the Colts type, man. He's big, he's mobile. They used to call him Vanilla Vic, so he can run if he needs to, and Shane Steichen can run his offense with Daniel Jones.
Now, the interesting part about this situation is what happened to this team in free agency as well. And I think that provides a lot of context to where this team's going. We'll talk about this free agent class and the draft class, right? You have players in the interior offensive line that they lose in Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, both to the same team, the Minnesota Vikings, actually. You lose guys like Julian Blackman as well. Like, those are big young pieces on a team that, wanted to try to maintain a lot of their nucleus, but they also went and, changed those guys out and added some different guys. Obviously, you already have Quentin Nelson, one of the best guards in the league there. You re-sign a guy like Danny Pinter there at the guard position. You go add a guy like Cam Bynum from Minnesota. They basically traded Daniel Jones and Cam Bynum for Will Fries and Ryan Kelly from the Vikings. They are completely kind of redoing and addressing some of their weaknesses over the past few seasons, like the cornerback position. Adding a guy like Charvarius Ward from there is such a big move for them because at the cornerback, they've really struggled over the past few seasons. And I think Cam Bynum provides a little bit more upside than Julian Blackmon at safety. And clearly, with Shane Steichen at the helm, it's not like his job is the most safe right now. This team has not won more than 9 games the last 4 seasons, right? They had a losing season last year after making the playoffs the year before with Gardner Minshew playing most of the quarterback. But Shane Steichen's fighting for his life right now. And I think what's interesting about it is you have 2 quarterbacks in that situation where Anthony Richardson, the Colts have a lot invested in him and they want to see him work out, but you have a head coach that is fighting for his job. What kind of an impact does that have with, the added emphasis of this free agent class making a big time impact this season instead of the future?
Yeah, well, it's not just Shane Steichen. It's Chris Ballard as well, man. He's been there for 8
Yeah.
years. He's had a 62-69 record. He's only had 1 playoff win, and it's 0 division titles. Just think about that. He's been there that long. He's never won a division. He's never won the
Yeah.
AFC South. That's crazy. So they're all
And
in
it's
the
not
hot
like the
seat, man.
AFC South's been a great division during that time either.
No, no. Since Andrew Luck retired, 10 quarterbacks, 0 division titles, 1 playoff win. That's crazy to think about. And the unfortunate thing that happened is obviously Jim Irsay passed away, so his daughter takes over. What's her name here? Charlie Irsay Gordon is taking over, and that's the wild card for me. This season is what is she gonna do? What happens if they don't make the playoffs? What
And that is a good point
is she
though,
gonna
because
clean house? We don't
Jim
know.
Irsay had a lot of loyalty to those guys, and obviously, after some reports potentially of Steichen being gone, Chris Ballard being gone last year, he decided, let me bring these guys back for another season. I like the direction they're going, and we saw a similar situation with Frank Reich, who obviously had a Coach of the Year type season with the Colts, but he was gone shortly after the production kind of fell off. And the draft class that they bring in, Ballard brings in, you have Tyler Warren, JT Tuimoloau, Justin Whaley, you mix in some other players like DJ Giddens in there as well. I think the draft class is more about addressing positions of need for this season. I think they understand where their jobs are and what's currently on the line. You get Tyler Warren, win now tight end, in a position that they desperately needed. JT Tuimoloau fills in for Dio Imbo. It's one of the hardest last names to pronounce, but he was one of their best pass rushers last season off the edge, and they desperately needed the guy to go and fill his role after he left for Chicago. Giddens provides more of that third down role and, a supplement to Jonathan Taylor. And, we will see what happens with this class, but it is more of a win now class instead of drafting project guys. And I think that plays into the quarterback situation a little bit. And that's why I keep addressing it, is because I think that the best overall move for this team could potentially be Daniel Jones to go win more games in 2025. Now, like you mentioned, it's a close battle right now in camp. Anthony Richardson is stacking good days, and Colts fans look like they are buying into the Anthony Richardson hype. But the preseason is going to completely determine who the starting quarterback is. And if Anthony Richardson continues to not be able to operate within the Colts system, make the plays they need them to make behind a really strong running game, an offensive line that's been historically good over the past decade, and Daniel Jones can make those plays to not necessarily, I don't want to say play it safe, but not make big time momentum shifting drives, whether that's overthrowing 2 wide open receivers, throwing an interception, something like that. Daniel Jones can operate within the system well, and we saw him do that in New York at times, leading a team to the playoffs that wasn't really that talented. So I think that part's fascinating about the quarterback battle. I think in that regard, they could lean Daniel Jones. Is that what you're thinking with this?
Well, man, I don't know. I really think the front office there and the coaches don't know either. That's why we're making this video. It's very intriguing, man. I believe Chris Ballard obviously wants AR. He needs to develop. He needs to get his reps. The thing about him is he always gets hurt. He never stays healthy. He hasn't played
Yeah.
more than 4 games in a row. So he needs all the reps he can. He worked on with his throwing coach this offseason to improve his base. So and then now he told reporters that he's got more a feel of where the ball's going, which is good to know. But I mean, dude, he's too talented. He's young. He's still young. Just think about it. He's 3 days older than Cam Ward, who just went number 1 overall, and he's played 2
He is young.
seasons. He hasn't played a lot of games in the NFL, but he's already got 2 years above Cam Ward, and he's 3 days older than him. So, I mean, you can't give up on a guy like Anthony Richardson. You just can't.
You have the job security part of it with the head coach and the GM, but you also have AR, the prospect. Like you mentioned, he's still
Yeah.
really young. And I think that excites a lot of people in other organizations, like a team potentially like the Los Angeles Rams, who have 2 veteran quarterbacks in their quarterback room. Stafford's near the end of his career. You have Sean McVay, who a little bit quarterback whisperer in Los Angeles, right? You bring AR, a super talented guy. Maybe that's a guy that succeeds in that system. And we've seen like Trey Lance, for example, fail in that regard to where, he was with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, was never able to get it done despite the talent. And then he went to Dallas and was never able to get it done as well. And now you kind of have Anthony Richardson in a similar situation. I think that the most likely case scenario, even though I think Daniel Jones is probably the best route for this team to compete this year, is probably starting Anthony Richardson the first few games, seeing how it goes, and not giving up on him completely. Because if you don't start Anthony Richardson week 1, then I think his development or his time in Indianapolis is probably over. I think it's probably, the nail in the coffin at that point. And who knows, obviously Daniel Jones on a 1-year deal, what happens with that. But Anthony Richardson at this point, they're going to give him a shot potentially. We'll see how long it lasts, but the leash is going to be short.
Yeah, absolutely. And reiterating the point I made about Chris Ballard still being a big believer in Anthony Richardson. He told the Athletics, Zach Kiefer, I just think eventually Anthony is going to be who we think he can be. I still believe that. Whether that's this year or next, I don't know when it's going to happen. End quote. So he's still a big believer in him, but he brought up Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and said, hey, how do you think those teams feel about giving up on him? But he didn't mention that all those quarterbacks had a change of scenery too.
They did have a change of scenery that
he missed the
definitely,
big part.
yeah, that definitely impacted it a little bit for sure.
Yeah, so he didn't mention that, but
So
he's
the
still a
last
big
question
believer in the
here
quarterback.
before we wrap up this Blitz breakdown is competing for the division title, right? You have this roster that is built to win now. You insert Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. Which quarterback at this moment you think gives them the best chance of winning?
Whew, best chance of winning. I mean, I haven't seen it from AR, so it's got to be Daniel Jones. But
That's
I think
exactly
the ceiling, in my opinion, the ceiling of this team is higher with Anthony Richardson. He just got to be more consistent. He makes wild throws, man. But he's just raw. He's only played 13. He only 13 career starts in college. Just he hasn't played. He's 15 games in the NFL. He's got to stay healthy. If he stays healthy and he's consistent with his throws, he can take this team to the playoffs.
That is the part that Indianapolis is going to be weighing. Is the ceiling of Anthony Richardson high enough that the floor of Daniel Jones is not worth starting him? It is a basically battle all preseason long that we're going to watch, and I wouldn't be surprised until the last week of the preseason we find out who this Colts starter is. And for fantasy football purposes, that might be tough for a lot of us trying to figure out if we want to invest in Colts pass catchers this season,
Yeah.
but we will see. We appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Drop a comment down below who you guys think the Colts are going to be going with at the quarterback position in 2025. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content. And me and Dan will catch you guys next time.